Kishan is the founder of ThinkSocial.Asia, a Singaporean marketing technology startup focused on Asia. Through ThinkSocial.Asia, he delivers digital solutions to brands to help them achieve their business goals based on Asian customer insights, regional trends, and success stories. He has managed digital campaigns and delivered actionable insights for large consumer brands such as Singtel, Globe Telecom, Telkomsel, Prudential, Cartier, Montblanc, Volvo, Lux, Samsung, Panasonic, HTC, MediaCorp, and McDonald's. Ladies and gentlemen, can you put our hands together for Kishan?
Hey guys. Hey guys. How's everyone doing? So I'm Kishan from ThinkSocial.Asia, which is a local tech startup. So through this presentation, I'll be sharing more on social listening and how it can be used to enhance your customer engagement, both to reverse negative engagement and also to further enhance on positive engagement. So before moving any further, a show of hands. How many of us here in this room? Okay. How many of us here have used listening tools to date? A show of hands, please. Has anyone here used before? Oh, that's great. So it's a bit of a mixed response. So that is much in line with industry trends, where there are many brands today who are using more of a manual approach to listening, and therein lies a significant business implication, which is best captured through these statistics over here. And if we look at the very first statistic, to put it into further context, many brands, or rather many customers of these brands, are sharing their sentiments, their opinions, and also their brand experiences without tagging the brand in their post. So this means that without social listening tools, there is no automated or efficient way to track these insights and to take significant business actions in a timely manner. Say, for instance, if there are some negative engagement that's trending, it could grow into a full-blown crisis if we don't get to it in a timely manner. So essentially, with social listening, we're able to automate this process of picking out all these mentions in a very efficient manner. And there are three types of mentions that can essentially be connected. So first of all is text, images, and also one of my favorite, which was recently launched by listening tools this year, videos. And let's take a look at how video mentions are being captured through this video. Pretty cool, isn't it? How brand mentions can be captured together with its context through videos. And it's pretty great that how listening tools have evolved to keep in line with how consumers are choosing to express themselves and how they feel about their brands. The next question you guys might have is, especially for those who haven't really leveraged on listening tools, is what exactly I can get through the platforms itself. The insights are essentially divided into two parts. So the first part is around keywords that are associated with the brand. What are consumers communicating about a brand, and what are the related keywords? So essentially it's a trending keyword cloud. And the second one is more around KPIs and metrics around the sentiments, engagement rates, and share of voice. So essentially these are the two key pillars that you can get through listening platforms. At this point, some of you guys might have some questions. So yes, there are some cool things you can do through listening, and there are also like mentions that you can pick out and automate some of these insights. But then, how can I apply these insights in a meaningful manner to our specific brand? So I thought it would be a good way to look at some case studies to find out more. First up, Snapdeal. So Snapdeal is an e-commerce player based in India, and they use social listening to monitor the perceptions about their brand and brand ambassadors. One such example was around one of his brand ambassadors, Amir Khan, who had tweeted some controversial comments around freedom in India, and naturally it didn't resonate well with a large part of Snapdeal's audiences, who took to social media to voice some of their unhappiness around the tweet. So with social listening, Snapdeal managed to get on top of this trend within a matter of 1 to 2 days, and they managed to create a strategy to neutralize the negative implications of their brand ambassador's tweet. Namely, through this tweet, or that you can see on the bottom left, that they published within 2 days of Amir Khan's tweet, where they expressed that we are a proud Indian company of passionate young Indians building an inclusive digital India. So this way, they managed to distance themselves from their brand ambassador's tweet, and also re-emphasize how closely aligned they are with their audience's tweets. So as a result of this, they managed to mitigate the fallout from Amir Khan's tweet. As you can see from the top left-hand corner over there, there's a lot of negative mentions, negative hashtags, and they managed to neutralize this because there was a subsidized impact, or rather the negative sentiments were neutralized after they launched this tweet. Next up is Zappos. So Zappos is a US-based e-commerce retailer. So what Zappos did was to create targeted campaigns using the insights that they gathered through listening. They wanted to find out what were the key topics and also the key purchase decision criteria that their target consumers had in mind before they made a purchase. So in this case, they were looking at what moms of back-to-school kids were looking at. So they created specific categories to find out what were some of their common concerns and criteria. Like for instance, some of the moms, they found out that they were very interested in the weight of the bags, and also whether there's an ability to customize the color of the bag. So using all these insights, they integrated it into their campaigns to create better resonance with their audiences, and as a result, it managed to drive higher engagement and sales. And as a result of this approach, the very first time when they implemented this approach, it resulted in their best ever performing campaign to date. So that was one of the key benefits to that approach. Next up, Samsung. So Samsung has one of the largest listening teams globally, and I also had the opportunity to work with some of the teams in Singapore and also their APAC team. And one of the use cases that they have used is on activating on competitor insights. One interesting example was last year when Huawei launched their new phone. Samsung's listening team found that there was a lot of commotion around the slow-mo feature of Huawei's new phone. And the Samsung team was wondering, what's the big hype around the slow-mo feature? We do have this slow-mo feature on our Samsung phones as well. And what Samsung did was, within a few days, they launched a campaign focusing solely on the slow-mo feature that they have, as you can see from this video, focusing specifically on the slow motion feature. And within a week, they managed to reclaim the share of voice that they had lost to this slow mo feature to Huawei. So this is one great example. The second one is around image detection. The most common use case is around text, trying to read text, and as we know that most consumers are moving away to more visual, interactive approaches to communicating or explaining themselves. So what Samsung did was they used image detection available in social listening tools to find out how consumers are consuming their products. So in this case specifically, they looked at how consumers are watching shows on Samsung TV. So they look at the type of content they are watching on the TV, and also what kind of food they are eating, and also are they watching this content individually or as a group. And based on all these insights that can be picked out through the image detection functionality, they then power the targeting or make it more specific in their campaigns that they execute subsequently. Third is around purchase detection. As we know, to make the campaigns as targeted and as specific and relevant to each consumer, it's important to segment them based on some common characteristics. So in this case, what Samsung did was they marketed their customers based on the state of their customer life cycle they're in, and also based on their purchase intensity. Because considering a brand of Samsung's size, they would get like tons of content comments from customers. So they knew that they needed to prioritize these insights. And as such, what they did was through these segmentations, they were able to prioritize areas for improvement that are being flagged by their customers that needed to be addressed in a timely manner. And using that priority, they managed to drive engagement rates accordingly. Next up is McDonald's. So for McDonald's, similar to Samsung, they also had used it for competitor monitoring and trying to activate on any insights to drive engagement further. One such example was around the KFC's Ghost Pepper Burger, which was launched earlier this year, it seems, and many netizens felt that it was not as spicy as it was advertised to be, and if they were looking for a spicy burger option, they would go for McDonald's Spicy Chicken McDeluxe version. So what McDonald's did was, through that insights that was already automated, within a week, they went to market with this creative, trying to ride on the predominant sentiment of their consumers, that if they're looking for a spicy chicken burger option, McDonald's is the way to go. And that campaign was one of their best performing campaigns in terms of engagement rate for the first quarter this year. Adapting to unintended outcomes. So this is one of my favorite examples. So this year during April Fool's Day, McDonald's Australia thought it would be a great idea to launch a fictitious McPickles burger. And they posted this on all their social media platforms this year. So what they didn't expect was that many customers and consumers loved the idea of a McPickles burger. And during the day, many of these consumers expressed this on social media, saying that I hope this is not an April Fool's Day joke, and if it was, they would be so annoyed and so on. And the worst came true, of course, because at the end of the day, McDonald's decided to follow with their plan and announced that, hey, happy April Fool's Day, hope you guys like the joke. But the reverse happened because the public uproar in Australia went off the roof, and it was also picked up by many of the local channels as well. And the question I have here is, could McDonald's Australia have done better and be more reactive? Although yes, they already had planned for an April Fool's Day campaign using this McPickles burger, but considering that there was a strong positive reception to an idea of a McPickles burger, could they have then proceeded to launch this burger instead of just kind of limiting it to an April Fool's Day joke? So that's something that we can consider about. Like, for instance, instead of when there are opportunities to optimize on the engagement, we could do that instead of retaining the status quo. How can I not talk about KFC now that I've spoken about McDonald's? Similar to McDonald's and Samsung, they tried to get on the social bandwagon in terms of any trending events. I'm sure some of you guys might be familiar with the Malaysian MasterChef incident, but I'll just share it again. So what happened last year was a Malaysian MasterChef contestant's rendang chicken was found to be not too crispy. And this was something that didn't go too well with consumers in the region, also of course not forgetting in Malaysia. And many netizens took to social media to criticize the decision and also the comments of the judge. So KFC saw a great opportunity here to stand or align with their consumers and show how they are aligned in terms of thoughts. So they released this creative. So KFC was one of the first on the bandwagon for this rendang gate incident. And not only did they express their viewpoint and also express a standpoint, they also used a bit of tongue-in-cheek humor, which also went very well with the customers. And this was the best performing creative campaign for this episode or this topic last year. Next one is, I would say it's a very innovative approach from KFC, because what they did was they used social listening to find tweets, customer tweets, so they're just one line, and they repurposed it into short films. So they're turning the customers' words into pictures. So let's take a look at one of my favorite examples.
During our early days, to have KFC, we'd have to wait for Abba's payday. Or once in the blue 80s.
So by making it really literal, like every customer's tweet, they managed to invoke a good sense of humor, and this was one of KFC's best performing campaign for the year to date. So using original stories is also a great way to invoke further positive engagement among your customer base. Next up, Panasonic. So this is more of an example of a negative customer engagement and how a brand managed to turn it around using social listening. This was in relation to Panasonic Malaysia's Chinese New Year campaign this year. So the goal was, of course, to go viral and as many views as possible, and they did go viral and became the best performing video campaign for Chinese New Year this year in terms of views. But what happened was there was a lot of negative comments, negative sentiments on social media because of the video concept. Essentially, what Panasonic had done is using social listening. You found out like K-pop is one of the trending things with their target audiences. So they used the K-pop dance routine to introduce their Panasonic products, while the dancers were going through the spring cleaning routine. But what netizens kind of were unhappy about was they found it to be a bit stereotypical and illogical, because stereotypical since Indonesia showed women doing housework, and illogical because they were doing housework while wearing shoes, which is not very reflective of Asian households. So there was a lot of negative sentiments around that. But what was commendable on Panasonic's side was that they were pretty reactive and timely when they found through their listening tools that the negative sentiment was getting out of hand. They organized a press conference to explain the rationale behind the choreography. So for instance, like why the models were wearing shoes in the house was so that it would be more comfortable for them to dance and execute the routines. So they did take into account the model's welfare, and that helped to appease a lot of these netizens, because the negative sentiment or the net sentiment score subsided after the press conference. Next up, Nescafe. So, what Nescafe had found for several years was that their content strategy was not very high on audience resonance. So they wanted to use social listening to revamp it, try to move away from product focus to more audience-centric. And what exactly they did was to look at social listening to find out trending hashtags among their audience segments, namely coffee lovers based in Malaysia. And using the hashtags, they found the top content that was being posted by influencers. So they used it in two folds. First is curating this top performing content among random influencers and reposting it on their channel. So also giving more visibility to these influencers. And number two is by understanding what type of content is working very well among their audiences in terms of engagement, they then transformed their content style. As you can see on the top left-hand corner, that was what Nescafe had before. So they are more static, product-based images. And they kind of transformed it into more vibrant lifestyle images. And that had a huge impact on their engagement scores. If you can see here, their engagement rates quadrupled after the campaign was launched compared to the period before. And also brand mentions increased by 800%. So it does pay to look at social insights, to use that to influence your product strategy, to transform yourself, to transition away from product-based to more audience-centric. Next up, Fender. So I believe not many of us will be familiar with this. So this is a guitar seller based in USA. So what Fender wanted to use social listening for is pretty interesting because they wanted to use it to find new audience segments to grow the business. And one interesting segment that they found was around women guitarists, because they found that they were being stereotyped against, and many of them their needs weren't being addressed in terms of purchasing guitars. So what Fender did was to use social listening to test their hypothesis, meaning their hypothesis was women guitarists liked to play acoustic guitars, but through listening and through the insights, they found out that women guitarists actually loved to play electric guitar, or there was a stronger demand for that. And using these insights, they went to market with a electric guitarist influencer, and they managed to hit record levels in terms of engagement rates among this women guitarist segment, and also they managed to see huge sales growth on this segment as well. So in a nutshell, there are many ways you can use listening, and they usually are divided into these 4 common KPIs. It's very important to know what you want to achieve with listening before you use it. If not, there will be chaos and mixed results. One great example is Airbnb. Not only do they use listening to engage with their customers, they also use it as an opportunity to kind of upsell. So it's kind of linked to also business goals, because many times our bosses will also ask, like, what is the KPI, what are the financial results? So this is a good way they have used listening. And there are numerous approaches you can use to kind of activate on the insights through listening. But the key is, of course, for positive signals, try to scale it up, try to build further campaigns targeting on these positive signals to further strengthen the engagement. And for any negative engagement signals, be timely in mitigating the impact of the crisis and turning it around into positive signals. And of course, be innovative in your approach, like what Lyft has done. Instead of using a very standard routine thank you for reaching out to us, to any customer service queries, they make it a point to reply to each customer's tweet with an animated GIF response. So with that, I thank you guys for your kind attention, and do reach out if you have any questions during this event. Thank you.